So, the definition of the investigational use drugs are those compounds or the mixtures which have not been released by the Federal Food and Drug Administrations or by the legal authority of the respective country for the general use. Or the investigational new drugs are defined as those which are being considered for but not yet received approval by the FDA or the legal authority of the respective country for the human use. So there are five basic principles which are involved in the use of the investigational drugs are the as like an institution that is acting for the investigational drug studies must ensure that such studies contain adequate safeguards for itself, its staff, and the scientific integrity of the study, and especially the patient. So in doing so, the institution must have written policies and procedures for the approval, management, and control of investigational drug studies. All the investigational drug studies must meet accepted ethical, legal, and scientific standards and can be conducted by appropriately qualified investigators. All the patients who participate in investigational drug studies must freely consent in writing to treat with the drugs. This consent must be obtained from the patient or his legally authorized representative before before treatment is begun, and the patient has been fully informed about the study objectives and the risk and benefits associated with the study by the guidelines for the institutions. The principal investigator is responsible for the proper maintenance of the case report forms and all other drug records required in the study by the drug uh, sponsor institutions or Federal Drug Administration. The institutional drug control system must have a proper packaging and labeling, ensures the sufficient supply, storage condition, dose preparation, and administration should well informed by the nursing staff about the drug inventory and control system regarding investigational drugs. So, what are the classification of the drugs? The statement of the principles involved in the use of the investigational drugs in the hospitals exposes four distinct purposes. First is to establish the drug classification, to centralize the pertinent information concerning the drugs available for the research use, to define the availability of the such drugs to staff members, to establish a single stocking and dispensing unit within the hospital. One simple classification according to the criteria the hospital research is being divided. Like first is the class A. It should contain all investigational use drugs that are preliminary experimental stage, and the use of drug in this category is usually restricted to the principal investigator. And class B, it should consist of investigation use of drug which have passed through the first stage. Usually, drugs in this category are supplied to the Department of Pharmacy by the principal investigator and are dispensed only upon his written prescription. Class C is the limited to the drug approved by the USP/NF or passed by the FDA for commercial distribution. Drugs in this category may be used within the hospitals or its clinics if the physician complies with specific procedures. Class D is the drugs or preparations which have been accepted for use in the hospitals and are listed in the hospital formulary. Another simple classification which can be adapted to any hospital pharmacy operation. First is the general classification in which an FDA approved drugs which are recommended as essential for good patient care with a well established usage once accepted may be prescribed by all the members of the attending the house and house staff. Conditionals are the certain drugs may be approved for the conditional period of trial. A drug approved by the FDA for the general use but which the committee wishes to evaluate for given period and consideration. may be prescribed by all members by attending and housing staff. So the investigational next class is the investigational drugs which are not approved by the FDA for the use other than the under control clinical settings must be approved by the research advisory committee. A protocol of any study involving the drugs must be submitted to the pharmacy. Next, what are the control of the investigation use of drugs? So all the drugs should be registered with the PTC, that is a pharmacy and therapeutic committee. This may be accomplished by a letter from the principal investigator which provides the following information. So what are the new drug name, generic name, manufacturer, chemical name, property name, general chemistry behind that, what is the pharmacology, toxicology, dose range, method of administration, antidote, and the therapeutic use. So, many pharmacists have developed the various forms which may be used to disseminate the above information on an investigational use drug to the various staff doctors and the nurses. So, these are the following titles which has to be kept during giving the information to the physician. So, the physician data sheet on the investigational drug. Physician data sheets on the investigational drugs include name of the investigational drug, manufacturer, a strength and the form of the investigational drug, what is the amount received, data received, control or the batch, pharmacological and therapeutic property, what is the dosage, precaution, arrangements which have made for its administration. So there should be a sign in every format. For the nurses data, we require the name of the investigational drug, manufacturer, strength, pharmacological and therapeutic dosage, and also the arrangement which have made for its administration. Next is the pharmacist data sheets, which included the drug, what are the drug, investigational drug, manufacturer name, chief investigator, the date, physician name, patient name, what are the medicines, what are the amount, and at what ward. And next is the identification of the investigation use drug. Whenever the class A and the class B drugs are dispensed from the pharmacy, they should be labeled in such a manner as to differentiate them from the routine prescription drugs. In some hospital, investigational use drug labels are printed in red ink or in a white paper stock. In addition to commonly required information, we require a patient name, data, prescription number, doctor's name, and direction for use. This double set of number provides a two-way control related to the identity to the product dispense. Next is the authorization for the treatment with the drug under clinical investigation. So the law department of the American Association state that the drug under the clinical investigation should be administered only where the informed consent of the patient or his or her authorized representation has been obtained. The physician is convinced of the reasonable accuracy for his diagnosis and the existing methods for the treatment have been proven unsatisfactory. So the physician is advised to confine his clinical investigation of a new drugs to those furnished by the reputable sources who have supplied him with comprehensive written information concerning. So the animal experimentation, previous clinical investigation, recommended doses, contraindications, side effects, possible useful side effects, or the existing data. So for that they have to file a authorization form. So in that authorization form it has to be written that I authorize the doctor name, the attending doctor or the physician to treat with patient name with the drug presently identify as the hospital number for the following condition, what are the described the symptoms or the disease. It has been explained to me that the safety and the usefulness of the drugs in the treatment, and I voluntary consent to treat with the drugs and release the attending doctors from the results. So there will be a signature of the patient or the authorized representative of the patient if it is illiterate, or it should be signed it with in the presence of a witness. Next is the consent form. This is for the patient. So the patient name and the date has to be written, and what is the title of the project and the description of the product to be undertaken. Like I have fully explained to the patient, name of the patient, the nature and the purpose of the producer described above, and such risks are involved in its performance. So the physician will sign, and this consent form will also be signed with the with in terms with the in the presence of any witness.